said priesthood is prayer. But this prayer is not just speaking in tongues. This prayer has many dimensions. And in order for your priesthood to be complete and holistic, you need to understand the 5 dimensions of prayer, or the way prayer is executed or prosecuted. And I said the first dimension of priesthood is the ability to minister to the Lord. And I said ministering to the Lord is not asking God for your needs. Ministering to the Lord is to acknowledge who He is and to honor Him for who He is. In Exodus 28 verse 1 and 2, it said, separate unto me Aaron and his son, that they may minister unto me in the priest office. So the reason God created the priesthood is because, like every king, God was looking for those who can sing His praise, eulogize Him, and to acknowledge His excellency. And so the first thing every priest does in the corridor of prayer is to know how to discern God and how to praise His name, how to exhort Him, and how to honor Him. In Acts 13 verse 2, the Bible said, the people in Antioch, the leaders in Antioch, he said they fasted and they ministered to the Lord. And I showed you a few examples yesterday on how to minister to the Lord. If you will go through the scripture very quickly, I saw that she activated one scripture while she was talking. Because there are many scriptures in the Bible where powerful and wise men were ministering to the Lord. For example, and that's when you will know the stature of a man. The stature of a man is not the title he bears. The stature of the man is the depth of his communion with God. You know, when Hannah had need for a child, she was laboring to get a child, and the child was not coming. So an intelligence was furnished in her that the quickest way to route her need is to minister to the Lord. And so Hannah went to the temple, and the depth of her communion was so much that she didn't have letters to communicate it. Her mouth was shivering. And somebody who was a high priest, who was supposed to look upon her and discern the intercourse that was taking place, was not aware, because Eli's eyes were dim. He could no longer perceive spiritual things. And he looked at her and said, stop this, your drunkenness. When will you stop this? And was rebuking somebody who was high in the spirit. And Hannah looked upon her and said, no, this is not an act of drunkenness. I am overwhelmed with grief. So I am entering into God. I am pouring into God. The proof of what was happening there was in 1 Samuel chapter 2 verse 1. And Hannah said, my mouth is enlarged over my enemies. She began to say things that the high priest did not know, because those ones were not written in scrolls. They were written in the spirit realm. He said, my mouth is enlarged over my enemies. And she began to say certain things that were strange. He said, there is none holy as the Lord. How did you know? Because even the angels that are in heaven, the best they knew about God was that you are holy. How did you now know that there are other holy spirits, but there is none holy as the Lord? You know that because your spirit is separated unto God, now your spirit is holy. You know that the angels, because they are separated to God, they are also holy. But Hannah, on account of where she entered with God, she was able to survey all the spirits in the spirit realm. And she came to a conclusion that of all the spirits that are holy, he said there is none holy as the Lord. Now that kind of prayer is not God give me something. That is a prayer of acknowledgement of who God is. And on the strength of your discernment of who He is, you can give Him a kind of praise that you didn't pick from a textbook. That kind of praise comes out of your spirit because your spirit has had intercourse with God, and it is what you have discerned about God that is peculiar to you that you are able to talk about. He said there is none holy as the Lord. He said there is none beside Him. He checked all the other spirits that claimed they were gods. She now discovered all of them were fake. So you will know that where Hannah traveled to was a place deeper than give me a child. Because what she was looking for was a child. But when she began to commune with God, she went beyond the place of receiving. She went to a place where she could internalize dimensions in the spirit, and she began to communicate them. If you brought Eli to that school, Eli will be a student. Because what Hannah was saying, the high priest didn't know it. He said there is none beside thee. That means any other being that says he's a god is a liar. That's what Hannah was saying. Number one, you are the most holy. Number two, there is no other being that can claim that is a god apart from you. You are the only God that exists. Because when I entered the chronicles of the spirit and I looked, There was no other person that had the authority that you command. So you alone have to be the source of all spirits. And then in order to buttress it, he said he breaketh the bowl of the mighty. He said those who were weak, he girded with strength. He lifted the beggar from the dust. He lifted him from the dunghill. He puts him among priests so that he will inherit thrones. He said the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he established their dominion thereof. How did you know where the pillars of the earth were? Because at this point he was now eulogizing God as the almighty creator. Those kinds of things, they don't hear them in the public. You hear them in the place of intercourse, where God himself begins to whisper into your spirit, this is who I am. This is what I represent. And so when you come back to him, you begin to tell him what he is that nobody else knows. On the strength of that depth of communion, God begins to enjoy and begin to have pleasure. Because that's the only way you can give God pleasure. You don't really give God pleasure when you cast your offering on the altar. That offering is used for administration. The only thing that gives God pleasure is when you can discern him. And on the strength of your discernment of him, you begin to eulogize him. That's what the 24 elders and the 4 beasts do forever and ever. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. And they are saying that repeatedly. You are hearing it and you think it's a boring song because it's repetition. But God is hearing something different, because they are exploring depths of God that nobody can study. Holy is the Lord. That was the kind of intimacy that Hannah entered into. And we say that dimension of intimacy is called ministering to the Lord. It is the first order of priesthood. And so if you want to be a priest of God, you must also master how to minister to the Lord. The psalmist was speaking in Psalm 29, and he said, bless the Lord. He said, for he is full of majesty. He said, for the voice of God is full of glory. He said, the voice of God thundered it. He said, the voice of God divided the flames of fire. The voice of God discovered the forest. This is only the voice of God that somebody is talking about. He's not talking God yet. He just picked only the voice of God, and he was talking about the voice of God. He said the voice of God causes the hind to calve. How can a man be talking? These guys could sing God forever and ever, and they will not be exhausted. For such people, God separates them unto himself and calls them his priest. You are not a priest because you went through a ritual. You are a priest because you have mastered how to minister to the Lord. And every one of us that is born of God, our first assignment in existence is to know how to minister to the Lord. Because the first way your life will glorify God is not to go out and win souls. It's to first of all know how to give thanks, give praise, honor, and glorify him. Because if you don't do that, what will you teach the soul that you want? It is called ministering to the Lord. And I said the second dimension of priesthood is the art of beholding him. It may not mean much to you until you are married. The women who are married here, they understand. A woman can be excited from morning to evening if she dresses and comes out and the husband just looks at her and says, my God, what a beauty. She will just become shy. Now, if the husband wants to go deeper, as she's shy, he will now begin to analyze her from her eyelashes. He will analyze the eyelashes, analyze the skin color, analyze the fingernails, analyze the hairdo, and then the garment she's wearing. Because of that analysis, the next day, that woman will take her bath by 5 a.m. because she wants to hear it again. She wants to hear. And if the man keeps saying it, the man will be in trouble because all her money will finish in her wardrobe. Because she will do anything to keep hearing what the man is saying.